Hello everyone, Patrick here from the Flight Sim Deck. My goal with this video is to get you flying with Prepared, so let's not waste any time and get right into it. To purchase and download Prepared, you'll have to head over to Prepar3D.com, and from there, click on Store, and you'll be taken to a page with 5 different license options. And this is where some of the confusion begins in determining which one to buy. The 2 main licenses we'll focus on are the Academic for $60 and the Professional for $200. Now, both are the exact same simulator. The only difference is that the Academic version has a small watermark in the upper right corner. And at this point, you will need to read the End User License Agreement to determine which license applies to you, specifically 1.1 and 1.2 of the license grant and 14.13. Now, the academic version is only for students K through 12 or undergraduate students seeking a degree. And having said that, this is done on the honor system, and that means they're not going to actually verify if you're a student or not. So if you do buy the $60 version and you're not a student, no one's going to come after you. So now that you've decided which one to download, we're going to simply unzip the file and click on the installation file. And if feasible, it's a good idea to install Prepared on its own hard drive, preferably a solid-state drive. Because Prepar3D and the add-ons you might acquire can take up quite a bit of space, and it'll run a lot faster on a solid-state drive too. So to install it on a separate drive, you just make a new folder on the hard drive and point the installation path to that folder. If you only have one drive, it's still okay to install Prepared. I did that for many years, just using it on my main drive, so that's fine too if that's all you can do. So now that you have Prepared installed, load it up and let's take a look at the settings menu. To start, click Options, and we'll start at the top with Application. There's not much to worry about on this tab. I like to keep the Pause on Task switch unchecked. If checked, this pauses Prepared if you were to navigate outside the application. And you can also control the unit of measurement, the latitude, longitude, based on the country you live in. So next, let's take a look at information. This page controls the labels and messages you will see throughout your flights. I like to have all these unchecked as it's a little bit distracting to have them. It kind of ruins the immersion for myself. I do leave the pause label on just to have an extra warning that the sim is paused. Moving on to sound, just make sure the audio is set up for your preferred devices. And this is also where you can control the aircraft and environment sound levels. I have them all even. I like them like that, but if you're having issues with cockpit noise over the outside noise, you can adjust them here. So traffic is the first tab that can actually impact your overall performance. For the most part, I like to leave all of these unchecked. It's nice to have the traffic, but I would rather have the extra performance boost while flying. Because if flying properly, you're not looking at the cars and boats anyway. But depending on your system specs, you can turn them on if you want. I have in the past run them at about 5%, and that still looks okay. But that's up to you. You'll have to see what your system can pull out. For realism, I like to have everything set to realistic. I deselect the vehicle collisions because if you're running AI at the airport, sometimes they can just run you over and you don't even know it's about to happen. And you'll lose all your progress setting up the flight. So I like to leave that off. And I also turn off the auto rudder, but if you are using a mouse and keyboard, it's best to leave that checked. And for more information on that, I made a video recently about flying with a mouse and keyboard. And I also uncheck the ignore attachment weight and forces, because if you have that checked, it's not going to pay attention to any of the loads you're putting on the plane. So we're going to skip add-ons. I don't have anything in there to talk about, and we're just going to go right into the scenery library. Now this allows you to easily disable or enable your installed scenery, and for the most part, you will need to spend some extra money to make the overall scenery look pretty good and prepared. And we'll get into that a little bit later in the video. The default scenery in this library, like Randolph Air Force Base, are good indications that Lockheed Martin has spent extra time on these areas to make them look nice. So when you're starting out, you can try one of these areas if you want to fly some more realistic surroundings. Next, we'll take a look at the display, and this is the beginning of the core graphics settings for Prepared. When it comes to these settings, I've found there isn't really an overall answer for everyone, and these settings vary based on your hardware, aircraft choice, scenery, weather, the tools you're running at the same time, and this is why I like to set up multiple profiles. General aviation aircraft, like small planes, can usually run with the settings very high, but once you get into a heavy aircraft, you might need to make adjustments. Because a profile that works great on your PMDG 738 might not work so good with your FS Labs A320 and so on. So I recommend using a frames per second counter and experimenting with these settings for the optimum experience for your PC and what you're doing, where you're flying. So On this page, a few of the difference makers can be locking your frames to 30 frames per second or having it unlimited. Some people like locking it to one number so the frames per second doesn't jump around too much. VSync can also have a major difference. So this option doesn't always work good for all monitors, but give it a try to see what your simulator performs with. The next graphics setting is World, and this controls how the environment looks. Again, run a frames per second counter and experiment both parked and while you're flying to see what you can get away with. And on this page, I keep the special effects low. These control like smoke and fireworks and things like that. And if high, they can have a pretty significant impact on the frames per second. If you want to see the beautiful new cloud effect in P3D, make sure you have the boxes and weather checked. I like to run the clouds at ultra. But I have seen a performance hit when getting near the clouds if the resolution is set to ultra. But usually it's not too bad, so I leave it maxed out unless I need to reduce it. Moving on to the lighting settings, these are settings you can copy, specifically the HDR if you like the way mine looks. The shadows can vary, so that will be up to you to determine. I like having most of them on. You can not only control what has shadows, but you can control the quality and how far the shadows are drawn across the scenery. So consider trying to have the shadows drawn out as far as possible. It looks really nice having the clouds shade the ground in the far distance. So with the graphics settings out of the way, we'll go into the key and button bindings. And here you can map your keyboard commands and buttons on your flight sim hardware if using any. And if you don't have any flight sim hardware, you can take a look at a video I made about the various options you have. Went around and looked at the different entry-level sticks and yokes and took a look at those. So that video will be linked as well. So to map buttons, simply click on Controller and then select your hardware from the drop-down, be it keyboard, flight stick, and then click on the event you want to change and press the desired button. The main events you will need are pitch, ailerons, throttle, reverse thrust, rudder, brakes, flaps, and spoilers. So make sure these are mapped the way you want them, and if you're using flight sim hardware, most of these will be controlled on the next page called Axis assignments. And when using multiple pieces of hardware like a yoke, throttle quad, rudder pedals, P3D likes to map multiple axes that are already performing another task. So this can also happen if using a flight stick. But for example, by default, your rudder axis might be linked to the throttle and vice versa. So you have to go through and make sure each is only controlling what it's supposed to. Lastly, for the controls, we have the calibration tab, and this lets you calibrate each axis and also control the sensitivity settings if needed. So when running hardware for the first time, it's a good idea to calibrate each one. And over time, it's also good to keep up on doing that too because they can change. So the last tab is the options, and for various other control setups like you might have like with force feedback and mouse and controller options. So with all the settings out of the way, we're going to talk about starting your first flight. First, if you're not using a weather engine like Active Sky, you can set the weather to predetermined forecasts, or you can customize the weather to your own liking. Then you can change the vehicle button where you will select the aircraft, the civilian avatar, or even a submarine. And then next, you can pick the airport you want to fly at. This can be done by searching the airport code, airport name, city, state, region. And once the airport is selected, you can pick where the aircraft will spawn, be it the gate, stall, parking spot. Some airports have more spots than others. This is a smaller airport, so only getting minimal parking spots, but usually there's a whole bunch of them you can pick from. There's also a flight planner to plan your route, but there are far easier ways to plan and import, and much more better ways like SimBrief. And again, we'll talk about that briefly a little bit later. And then you can also control what time and date and season you want to fly. And then, you can program the real-world time too. So after your flight information is configured the way you want, press OK and the scenario will begin to load. I also want to mention that if you do not like the time of day or season once loaded, you can further configure it from the World tab in the top menu. From here, learning to fly is going to be your task. But in the beginning, just have fun. There's plenty of time to focus and learn on technique and procedures. And P3D also has several brief tutorials that can teach you a few things to get you started. So these can be found in the Load Scenarios menu. So you might want to check those out. For the last part of this guide, I want to show you where you can get add-ons that are going to take your simulator to a whole nother level. And when I first started flight simming, it took me a while to find out about these. When watching YouTube videos, I was always wondering, how does their 737 look better than mine? And how do their runways and scenery have so much detail? I didn't understand where they were getting all this stuff. So slowly I began to piece together and learn about all the different tools and scenery companies. And for this reason, I created this website to put all these add-ons and information in one place. And the link in the comments and the description will take you to the prepared page I designed. And each entry is linked with the web page, and it has a little description of what the add-on is for. So we'll take a look at each one. First, I have prepared the website where you can go to purchase it. We got AV Sim, and this is many user-created aircrafts and liveries, textures, scenery, all kinds of stuff. Sim market is a massive market with all kinds of things in flight simulation across all the simulators. So they carry so much stuff that you'll probably be buying from there. SimBrief is an easy-to-use flight planner and route planner. It's free. It's extremely easy to use. Just plug in the airports you want to go to and from, and it'll give you the real-world routes, all kinds of information about the weather, your cost indexes, fuel information, everything. It's really an incredible website, so take advantage of that. And we have Project Fly version 3, and this is a real-time flight sim tracker and pretty much a pilot logbook. I really love flying with that. It's been a real game changer for me since I started using it. For online network to fly with real people, real controllers, we have the VATSIM network. It's free. It's one of the most popular virtual air traffic simulators, so check that out. Pilot Edge is another one. You have live air traffic controllers 15 hours a day around select regions, and these are usually people training to become real-world ATC, so they do everything really strict by the book here. Definitely a great training tool for you guys. Next, we have FSElite, an excellent flight sim news website to keep up to date on what's coming out and what's going on. Then we have AirNav, and this is a U.S. airport information and charts website. Get all kinds of, pretty much all the charts, your SIDs, your stars for a lot of airports in the U.S. and its territories. Then we have Navigraph. This is where you can update your air rack cycle, get your FMC, MCDUs, all that up to date. They have moving charts and all kinds of navigation data, so check that out. Subscription-based and one of the coolest tools for flight simulation. And then we have this quick fuel planner. I really like this website. It just gives you, if you need fuel information real fast, gives you you just plug in your route and it'll tell you how much you're going to need. So it's a quick way to get some fuel info. So now we're going to move into the recommended plugins, and first we have Orbex, and this is the most popular and most widely used scenery enhancement. They have high quality airports for textures and regions all over the world, so you just load those in. And the most popular is Global. That's going to fix the entire sim. It doesn't do miracles, it just makes it look a little nicer. There's Vector, and then you can go even smaller with different regions. So definitely check them out. They have a ton of free ones that you can install and try, I think 20 or 30 or more. So just hit up their website, and you can get the free ones there. Next, we have Active Sky, and this is the most popular weather engine. It injects real-world weather, and you can do route planning, and you get all the information of the airports as you're coming in. You can get the wind direction, what's going to happen, a radar map you can look at where storm patterns are going, winds. It's an amazing tool. You can load in historic weather, just plug in the METARs and you can fly it, or you could just do custom. You can, it's such an amazing tool. Couldn't fly without it. So if you want real world weather and just to enhance your sim, check out Active Sky. Next is Chaseplane, and this is a fantastic camera tool for Prepared. And as a video producer, this is one of my favorite add-ons. Really lets you get in there, control the camera, do cinematics, move around the cockpit easily. Works good with Track IR. It's just an amazing camera tool. Definitely, I would say my number one tool for Prepared is this one. Next, we have Rex Texture Direct, and this allows you to manipulate the textures for the skies, the cloud, the lighting, usually picking different lighting situations for the season and changing what the cloud textures look like. Really a nice enhancement tool. Then we have Precision Manuals PMDG, and this is one of the most popular study-level aircraft companies, mainly with Boeing aircraft. They have the 747s, 738s, 777s. This is where you get those big boys. They are on this website, and one of the most popular, easily the most popular aircraft site. Next, we have Aerosoft, and they publish many sceneries and aircraft. And they have one of the original Airbuses for flight simulation. Now they have the A318 and 19. They also have an A330 now, and so this is where you get those. It's a little easier as a beginner compared to the FS Labs, so if you want to start there, this is a good one to begin with. And speaking of FS Labs, that's next. This is arguably the best A319, 20, and 21 in all of flight simulation. These are highly detailed study level simulators, and they're not as forgiving if not used properly. So if you want a good Airbus, this is the company to go with. Next, we have the TFDI Design 717-200. This is the only study level 717 in flight simulation. It's classic. It's like a fun little MD-80. Really cool plane. Check that one out. Next, we have Coronado, and they offer a huge library of general aviation aircraft, jets, props, all that. Not quite study level, but the most impressive looking flight models around. They're still very good. But, you know, they're not everything's going to be by the book, but they're still very acceptable, so check them out. Tons of planes. A2A is another one that is great study level. Some Cessna-type planes. Their Cessna 172 is probably one of the most popular, and like I said, these are top-of-the-line sims for general aviation. There was actually a top 5 poll recently, and A2A took all 5 spots, so that's saying a lot to their quality, so check them out. We also have GSX Level 2, and what this will do is this is ground handling. This will bring on the catering, the cargo loaders. You can see the pilots, the passengers get on board the plane either through the gate or a bus, you know, from a shuttle. It very much adds a lot to the simulation when you're at the gate or stall, so you might want to add that to your sim. A lot of fun to use this app. And for those Dash 8 fans, Majestic makes Q400-8 here. This is also the best study level Q400 you can get at this time. This will be the one. So if you're a fan of that plane and you want to learn it, you want to try something that's a little different, a little challenging, check this one out. Great detail. You'll have a lot of fun with it. And then lastly, but not least, there's plenty more websites I'm going to be adding to this. In fact, if you guys have any suggestions of what to add to this recommended plugins list, I would love to keep building the list. So the last is going to be Flightbeam, and they have some highly detailed, highly optimized aircraft scenery for KSFO, Phoenix, Denver, and Portland, and a whole lot more. And, you know, these run really good. They look very good, run very good. So check out Flightbeam. Next, I have a few chase plane tutorials to help you out, to help you get going with that, making some cinematic videos too if you want. And then I have some other videos from FSElite. We have the top 5 airliners video, top 5 GA aircraft, and top 5 plugins for Prepared. And just a few extra random videos that I have. True Glass from the 717. So there's a good example of the 717 if you want to check that out. And how to update Prepared, depending on the update. So that can change. This was with version 4. And then a video using the Oculus Rift with version 4 as well. And then I have a few of my settings, and remember, like I said, I use different profiles. This would be my general aviation profile, so you can use a little bit from that, but also you can go back in the video where I have the settings too. So that's really it. I just wanted to show you the website with all these and really get you going with Prepared. So if you have any questions, you can drop them in the comments below, and I can take a look at those and get back to you if and there's anything I didn't cover in here. Hopefully this covers everything. This can be a lot to take in. I really hope the website helps you with, you know, all the pretty much the best plugins, best resources to get you going, and I'm going to keep building on to that list. So you know, feel free to check out the website. I have a lot of other great information on here, so you can browse that. Really hope this helped you guys get flying on Prepared. You're going to have a lot of fun. You take care. I'll see you next time.